It's ultimately a trial and error process. Sometimes the artist succeeds, and other times the artist fails. It's similar to science in that scientists must conduct many experiments, and sometimes the results are positive and sometimes they're negative, but both of them contribute to a larger understanding. It's the same way in art. Failure and success are not mutually exclusive. Rather, a combination of both events leads to comprehension. Yet this combination of failure and success, in order to truly understand a topic, often conflicts with the school environment. In school, things need to be handed in by a certain due date because of the limitation of time. And this necessity for things to be handed in often stunts the experimentation process, so some students aren't able to get past the initial step of failure. This often discourages students, and because they are stuck in the step of failure and they don't get to the success, they lose the emotional drive or motivation to work hard and truly learn. This isn't good because emotion, a way of knowing, is ultimately what fuels the pursuit of knowledge. And if there is no emotional connection to a topic, then students aren't able to gain a greater comprehension.
Well, that's where perseverance comes in. I mean, that's really where creativity comes from, hard work. You have to build up the technical ability before you really are able to be creative with a medium.
Yeah, that's true. I think artists you have to make a lot of bad art before you get to the good stuff. Like, someone like Da Vinci didn't start off as this genius that painted those great works of art.
Mm-hmm.
So could that be why some students fail in art classes? Because they haven't built up that technical ability yet?
Right, and that's really what school is about. I mean, you may not love it all the time, and you may not always be motivated to work, but you really need to work hard in order to develop the skills that'll help you communicate your ideas, that'll help you express yourself later in life, and that's when you can finally be creative.
Yeah, not just in art though. Like, think about science. You
Right.
need to understand the basics, and sometimes you need to just memorize facts in order to get
Yeah.
larger concepts.
This is true, in math too. You can't apply these large concepts if you don't know how basic addition in math works. You have to work through these basic things so it becomes almost second nature, and then you can learn the bigger stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's what intuition is. You have to focus on the building blocks, and then you build up your experience, and then once you have this intuition, that is what really enables creativity. So a lot of people think creativity can't be taught, but really it's all about practice.
Agreed.
Science is based really heavily in logic and reasoning, but it also has a language of its own. And these are things, I think, that turn a lot of students away from science and make them not like it as much and feel like it's sort of this impossible thing to understand. But I think science also depends a lot on emotion, because you have to have the passion and interest in science that makes you want to learn about it. And so if you have that emotional connection to science, you will learn the methodology and you will learn the language of science, and you will be able to explore things further. But without that emotional connection that people take for granted, the logic and reasoning and the language are meaningless. So some students are more successful in science, I think, because they have a passion for it. And I think it's our job to find something about science that we can have a passion for and be innately interested in, so that we will learn the language and we will be able to understand the methodology and then apply it to the other areas of knowledge.
But that idea of there being specific language and methodology in science is ubiquitous throughout all the areas of knowledge. Science has its own specific methodology for conveying things, but when you really look at it, so does something like math, where notation is very important.
True.
This is also true of just language in general. For example, someone learning Spanish has to learn Spanish. Its sentence structure isn't necessarily the same as something they already know, so that's why it's a bit difficult to learn something like that. But also, even more than that, art has different ways you're supposed to get certain colors, for example, by like layering in painting, and it's really just this language thing is ubiquitous throughout all the areas of knowledge.
Yeah, language is part of the methodology, and I think you have to have a passion for a subject in order to be willing to work with the methodology and understand it, and then once you do, it sort of unlocks a lot of emergent properties of that area of knowledge.
Okay, well, how is learning in art different than learning in other subjects?
I don't really think it is.
I mean, like, I think that in art, there's more of an emotional connection to the subject that the material that you're trying to learn, than there would be in, like, math.
I don't know if I necessarily agree, because I know some math teachers that are pretty passionate about their subject. And, you know, a doctor of philosophy is when people are really passionate about their subject, and so they're delving deep into it. They have this deep passion for their subject that they want to learn about. So I think that's pretty much the same as art.
I guess it's kind of like I said before, like, emotions are ultimately what fuel learning. So you need to have that curiosity and that passion for what you're trying to learn in order to truly understand it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's what helps you see the beauty in things like math. Like, not everyone appreciates it, but I love math because I think it's just really elegant, and I see it as beautiful. I see it in the same way that I see art in sometimes. And
well, this could help us answer the question of why some students are successful in school and others are not, because not everyone sees everything as beautiful, and not everyone has the same emotional connections to every subject, because you can't possibly.
Yeah, it's about perception. If you see one thing a certain way, you might be more curious about it and want to learn more about it, and this will help you learn it better.
So to really learn, you have to let go of your biases and kind of shift your perception?
Yeah. I mean, you have to be willing to look at things not so much as just work, but more as like a labor of love. You have to find something really interesting that drives you about a subject, and sometimes you do have to shift your perception. Like, you know, don't look at math as just a bunch of rote memorization, but look at it as the building blocks for, you know, for something, some important model or some great breakthrough later.
Also, since some people don't find math interesting and some people are more interested in art, it could help these people if they view math more as an art and try to see the artistic merit and beauty and how these things go together, just like in a painting. And in that way, math can be like an art, and people could find it interesting in that way.
So instead of perceiving all of these things as separate areas of knowledge, if we just look at how they're connected, I think that really helps with being successful in school.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be really open-minded as a learner. You have to be open-minded and willing to explore and reflect on the things you're learning.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
What does history teach us about this knowledge issue? Let's look at this from another area of knowledge, history. what does history tell us about why some students are more successful than others in school?
Well, I think success really depends on the historical context.
So you're saying the definition of success is like something fluid, like it depends on what era you're talking about?
Right.
Okay.
So with our question to student success and why students may be more successful than others, history would show that student success is based on the needs of the current time. And so now what somebody might be successful in might not have been a need or a success in the eyes of somebody in the past.
Yeah. So success is kind of a fluid term.
Exactly. Good. Good.
Yes, very good.
Wait, so Kevin, you're saying that success is based on historical context. So that would mean that success is based on the current needs or the past needs of that specific time?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, like during the 50s, during the Cold War, there was a need for weapons, and that's why subjects such as math and science were stressed. Would you say that?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I would say.
Wait, go.
Well, in the past, for example, like a hunter-gathering society, before all this civilization, success was based on something else. It'd be your ability to get food for dinner or something like that. From a purely evolutionary viewpoint, it's different. It's your ability to pass on your genes and your ability to reproduce. That's how you measure importance and success back from that viewpoint. But there are different ways to measure success, I guess. And it depends really on the historical context.
Okay, well, what is a successful student now, like, as compared to the past?
Well, I suppose someone that understands concepts in school and gets good grades, because now that is the model for measuring success.
But think about all that we just talked about. Like, students are different types of learners and they connect to things in different ways. So really, is having just one method of measuring success the best idea?
Well, that's why there are different ways of measuring success. There are different standards for assessing understanding and comprehension of different topics.
Wasn't it mostly just grades?
There are different grading scales, yeah, but of course there has to be some way to measure it. Like, there's the A, B, C, D, F system, but there's also percentages and the IB grading scale. So really, with all these different models for assessing intelligence and understanding, there's got to be one that's a good fit, and if not, then you can always adapt the model and change it for whatever would be better for the student.
Yeah.